Thank you. My name is Kyle Freund. Today I'm going to be talking to you about a cemetery archaeology course that's being offered at Indian River State College, in which we are recording historic grave markers at some historic cemeteries in the local area. Just to provide some background about how the project got started. It started back in spring 2016. It's the point in time where I met Kevin, and he and I began talking, and he was telling me about Crypt, and he was telling me about the broader Florida Historic Cemetery Recording project that he was involved in. I was intrigued. I thought this was a great opportunity to get students kind of engaged in this type of work, and so a new Field Methods in Cemetery Archaeology course was offered, was begun. So what do? We record historic grave markers at historic cemeteries. And we use that data to build interpretations of past human burials, activity, and burial traditions, etc. And of course, students get the opportunity to learn about archaeological research through firsthand and active participation in the process. Logistically, how the project goes down. We have groups of 2 students recording individual grave markers. And then a student works with me on photography and GPS recording. So for every headstone that we record, we take 4 pictures of them and record the GPS location as well. And some various forms we fill out here. For every grave marker, we fill out a Gravemarker Recording Form. And this includes all kinds of information. It includes information about the type of marker that it is, the material that it's made out of, the inscription, is it systematically recorded, gravestone designs, iconography, the condition of the marker, whether it's in good condition, poor condition, etc., and a whole list of other attributes. And of course, the photography log is logged as well. And importantly, perhaps most importantly, all the data that we collect is then put online, an online database through the UCF Bridges database, University of Central Florida, so that it's then accessible to the public for those doing their own research or family history research.
That looks like the Find a Grave website. Do you all also update that one? Or is that not the Find a Grave? I don't know.
Is it Find a Grave? It may be. No, it's not put on Find a Grave. Okay. Our website is not a picture of the UCF Bridges database. I don't know.
It just might be similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Regardless. So here are the 4 cemeteries that we've done so far. We've done Viking Cemetery here, and Sarah's Memorial Garden, Pine Grove, and so you can see the city of Fort Pierce here. And then Palm Cemetery is one of the cemeteries we did actually this past semester. So just began here. We began the project at Viking Cemetery. Viking Cemetery dates the late 1800s to the city, the now defunct city of Viking. That was founded by a group of those from a Scandinavian descent. Really kind of interesting backstory. But there are approximately 60 graves at Viking Cemetery. You can see the picture here. Most of the headstones, they're upright headstones. And then we have a few in-ground markers. In talking with the owner of the property, he was telling us about the history of the cemetery. He was telling us how there's this corner of the cemetery where he thought that there were unmarked graves. So we had a kind of unique opportunity to use some ground-penetrating radar to actually try to identify and locate those unmarked graves. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything, but I think it was a great opportunity for students to get involved in this and just chat. So that's Viking. So the second cemetery we visited was Palm Cemetery. Palm Cemetery began in the late 1800s. The earliest grave marker dates to 1903, and about 150 graves. There's a picture of us doing some work there. Palm Cemetery is a little different than Viking. There's a kind of a broader diversity of headstones represented. We have uprights, ledgers, There's even an obelisk. And in general, the different family plots are delineated in a different way, where each has kind of each family plot is marked by a marker unto itself. So the layout is a little different. Interestingly, we have a former governor of Florida buried there, Daniel McCarty, who was governor of Florida in the early 1950s. And it's a beautiful little view there, right on the water. The third cemetery we've been working at is Pine Grove Cemetery. This is an historically African-American cemetery, and you can see from the picture here, it's huge. There are thousands and thousands of graves here, and we're slowly working our way through. We began in this section here, and then we're moving on to this older section there as well. Pine Grove is unique, certainly in the St. Lucie County area, in that what we have are exposed in-ground vaults as the predominant burial type. And as you can see, oftentimes the names and the information that is associated with the people is actually painted on to the in-ground vault. Which is really, it's an interesting practice, but it also highlights preservation issues as well. And in many cases, the paint is wearing away. So I think this kind of really highlights the importance of this type of work, because this information is very easily lost. Just in terms of the layout of the cemetery, there's an overall uniformity in Gravemarker style and material, so that exposed in-ground vault made of concrete is the predominant Gravemarker type. It comes into fashion around the 1950s, so any Gravemarker predating 1950 or so is actually an upright. But while there's uniformity in the Gravemarker style, we see a broad range of grave goods present. And iconography, very diverse range of iconography as well. So it's a different way of commemorating those who have passed. There are 8 highwaymen artists buried at Pine Grove Cemetery. The Florida Highwaymen are a group of African-American artists that sold their artwork out of the backs of their cars and along the Florida highways in the 1950s and 1960s. It's only really in the past 20 years or so that they've really become recognized for the outstanding work that they've created. So these you can see these elaborate mosaics here. These are not paintings, these are mosaics. All 8 of them are designed like this, and you have 3 American flags on all of them. These were created back in 2004. And while we were out there, we were taking pictures of this and recording these grave markers. A woman approached us, and she was actually the person who created these mosaics, and identifies as a second-generation highwayman artist. She was trained by one of the original 26 highwaymen. Really, it was an amazing experience talking to her, and we had a really great opportunity to do a national public radio segment with her. We did an interview, and just a really kind of interesting things came out of it. So the 4th cemetery that we've just begun work at, haven't gotten too far, but it's Sarah's Memorial Garden. This is located in Fort Pierce, and another historically African-American cemetery, and the burial place, most notably of Zora Neale Hurston, the famous author of Their Eyes Were Watching God, and most closely associated with the Harlem Renaissance. And her grave, is a place where people visit and leave things and tokens to her. All right, so that's the work we've done to date. All the information that we collect from all the physical forms, we then enter into a database, into a Microsoft Excel database. So that allows it's very easy for us to do some data analysis. And at the end of the semester, I get all of my students to create a poster about some topic that interests them, and do some kind of statistical analysis or some kind of research on a topic of interest. And this past semester, some topics that we explored, or the students explored, iconography, religion, attitudes towards death, patterns of grave good dispersal, death, social status, and commemoration, comparisons of Gravemarker material and style through time and between and among cemeteries. And I had a student explore the average age of death at the various cemeteries and divided up by gender and so forth. So I just want to go through just briefly and show a little of some of my students' work here. So for example, a student did a poster on the prevalence of religious iconography at a couple of the cemeteries, exploring patterns and see if there are differences between the different cemeteries. Another student did differentiation of personal and impersonal grave goods. So what she did was she divided up grave goods. She called them personal, those that are directly associated with the individual. For example, there were teddy bears or things that we can kind of directly associate with the individual versus more generic grave goods like flowers or American flags that are more common. And looked at patterning between it all, between and among cemeteries. Really interesting project. Changing burial patterns, pine growth, examining building material style through time. So looking at the materials that the grave markers were composed of and the types of markers they actually were, and looking at it through time to see how they change. It's kind of similar to a form of seriation analysis, in which we associate certain forms of iconography or building style, material style, through time. This is kind of a famous example here from Massachusetts. For example, the death's head representation on grave marker was common, from about 1720 to 1780, before it fell out of style. Another interesting project, the commemoration of the Florida Highwaymen at Pine Grove. This is a really kind of interesting analysis here. So what this student did was she's explored, how the burials of the highwaymen have changed and developed over time. And what she showed was that as their legacies as artists have changed, so did their burials. So once they became recognized for their work, then of course their burials are, changed. And kind of the big conclusion from this, we often associate burial, a certain finality to burial. But in fact, cemeteries are places, they're active arenas for the construction of memory. They're active places. And that's a kind of important thing to always keep in mind. I can see similar things doing kind of similar work with someone named Hurston. In the future, Governor McCarty, more famous people buried in these various cemeteries. And lastly, a student explored average ages of death between the various cemeteries. So moving forward from this, I see some various avenues that we can kind of explore in the future and that we're kind of just beginning to get involved with. I think it's possible to build a broader narrative through primary source research. And in this context, I think the census is the best place to start. The census is available at census.gov for free. Those include more recent censuses. There's also free and paid websites that have some of the earlier work as well, or earlier census data as well. So the goal here is to compile, of course, the census data in Excel for analysis. And for example, we can find those individuals who recorded at cemeteries, and we can do some analysis of things like race, socioeconomic status, occupation, and really kind of see patterning in the burial data. And of course, we can also explore broader different demographic patterns in St. Lucie County that kind of situates our research within its historical context, and also kind of a bigger project to work on. And of course, we'll be able to create all kinds of fancy figures and graphs and so forth. And here's just a brief thing, kind of interesting, just briefly what I was doing. Census from Florida, 1945, St. Lucie County. A quarter of the population was not born in the United States in 1945. I found kind of interesting unto itself. While those, the 75% that were born in the United States, they were either from Florida or Georgia in largest numbers. So anyway, this kind of situates the burial research, I think. Also things we're hoping to move forward with, oral history interviews. For example, we talked with the owner of Viking Cemetery, and he was telling us about how he's responsible for the upkeep of the cemetery, doing simple things like mowing the grass and so forth. And his worry was that once he passes away, there's going to be no one to take care of him. His children have since moved off, and it's an interesting story, and it would be great to record that and get that archived. So let's tie this all together here. The course itself, I think, pedagogically is great. It combines applied learning and service learning, and kind of a unique experience for students to get out there and record cemeteries and make meaningful conclusions through scientific research. And it certainly benefits them. They develop transferable skills. Like I said, just doing scientific research, developing a research question, doing analysis on data, resume building, and gets them an opportunity to network in the community. But it also has benefits to the community as well, in terms of raising awareness of the destructive risks that many cemeteries face, connecting people to local heritage, and promoting its preservation, very importantly. And of course, the access to the cemetery data is important for those doing genealogical research and just research in general on this type of subject. That's what I have for you today. Thank you very much.